Okay, so the first project just consists of getting acquainted with the program that you're going to be using to learn how to program. We're just going to make a simple window and draw some simple shapes to make a picture. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go to this window menu, and I give you a lot of different commands or methods. The one you want to use is set size, and that sets the size of your window. And for right now, we're just going to start with a window that is 500 pixels by 500 pixels wide by 500 pixels high. Now, whenever you use a method or command, if you don't know exactly what it does or how to use it, you go to this little gray square, and it gives you a description of what the method does. So this method sets the size of the window at the specified width and height. It takes two parameters, an integer called width and an integer called height. The width, or that value, sets the desired width of the window, and the height, the desired height. Pretty self-explanatory. You need to understand how to interpret this documentation because when you use a method, let's say I'll give you something like this. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different numbers or parameters that this method needs. It's not clear what each number stands for, which is why you go to the method documentation and you read exactly what each number stands for. So you have to make sure to put the right numbers in the right field so you get the desired result. So set size 500, 500. Let's see what happens. Run the program, and we should get a window up in the left-hand corner that's 500 pixels by 500 pixels. Now, I will say this at this point. The coordinate system in Java is a little different than the coordinate system that you are used to using. So in math, the origin would be right here in the center, and as you go up, y would get greater, or y would increase, and as you go down, y decreases, and as you go to the right, x increases, and as you go to the left, x decreases. The coordinate system in Java is a little different. The origin is up here in the left-hand corner, so that's 0, 0. As you move to the right, x increases, so x is only positive numbers. As you move down, y increases, so y is only positive numbers. You can't put a negative coordinate inside of, or a negative coordinate is always off the screen. And we'll play with this a little bit today, and you'll get a better sense of what I'm talking about. The next thing I want to show you is this little comment field. You put the little comment dropper into a code bucket, and that allows you to type something. So I'm going to type set the window size. This is not technically a command. It's actually a line of computer code that the computer completely ignores. It's strictly for the programmer, for you, to organize your code. So today we're going to write a program that's maybe 10 lines long, but some programs are 1,000 lines long, or a single part of a larger program could be 1,000 lines long. Comments help you organize all of that mess into something that is intelligible and understandable and easily searchable. So I'm going to use comments in this very simple program in the hopes to get you to use comments early so that you use comments in larger programs so you don't get lost or confused. All right, so we've set the size. I showed you comments. All right, let's start drawing stuff. So the first thing I want to draw is a background to my window. And a background is just a solid color. So let's look at here. Let's look at this program right here. Do you see the background to this part of the screen? It's just it's a white rectangle. That's all it is. And the background behind here is kind of a purplish rectangle. And this white rectangle is drawn on top of this purplish rectangle. So the first thing we want to do is we want to draw, let's say, I'll choose a color later. I want to draw a background for this whole screen. So I want to draw a rectangle that's 500 pixels by 500 pixels wide. So first thing I want to do is, well, I want to tell myself I'm drawing the background. Drawing background. and I want to set color. That tells the computer what color it's going to draw at this moment. Now there are 3 set color commands or methods. I'm going to use the first one because it's the simplest. We'll get to the other 2 later, but the first one's pretty simple. It asks you for a color. Let's see what it does. Sets the drawing mode to the designated color, and the color is a number 1 through 12 that indicates the color. All right, what does 1 through 12 mean? You go to this little color wheel, and I've given you these color codes. So 1 will set the color to black, 2 white, 3 light gray, 4 gray, blue, red, and so on. Let's set the background to black. So I'm going to set the color to black. And then I'm going to draw a rectangle. Well, actually, I'm going to fill a rectangle. And I'll show you the difference between those two in a second. So how do you use fill rectangle? Well, fill rectangle takes 4 parameters. An integer called x, an integer called y, an integer called w, and an integer called h. And it draws a solid filled-in rectangle. The color of the rectangle is dependent on the current color mode, which is set by one of the 3 set color methods. And since I just set the color to black, it's going to draw a black rectangle. Each parameter stands for the x-coordinate of the rectangle, the y-coordinate, the width of the rectangle, and the height. So what I want to do is I want to draw a rectangle starting up here at the left-hand corner at the origin. So this is where I want to start. This is where I want my rectangle to start. And I want a rectangle that starts at this point that is 500 pixels wide and 500 pixels high. Remember, as you go down, y gets greater, or y increases. So my origin, my x is going to be 0, my y is going to be 0, my width is going to be 500, and my height is going to be 500. And I'm going to run the program, and nothing is going to happen. Ta-da! Why is that? Because you've told the computer that this is what you want the computer to draw, but you have to send this information to the monitor, and that is what this does right here. Repaint. Sends all the drawing instructions to the monitor. This method must be used in order to see an updated screen. So, if we put repaint right here, we're going to set the size of the window, set the color, fill a rectangle, and repaint. And there we go, we have a black background. Now, next thing I want to do is I want to draw a rectangle. Draw a rectangle. So, in order to do this, I want to use this method, draw rectangle. Now, how does fill rectangle differ from draw rectangle? As you might suspect, fill rectangle draws a solid rectangle, so with a solid color. Draw rectangle just draws the outline of a rectangle. So, let's say I want to draw it at x equals 150, y equals 150, and we'll make it 70 by 100. And I'm going to run the program. Okay, and nothing happened. Why is this? 2 reasons. Look at where my repaint method is. I sent all of these instructions, and then I gave it another instruction. So it didn't update the monitor. You want repaint at the end of a series of drawing instructions. So every time you call repaint, the buffer or the memory in the computer clears out, and it starts over again. All of your you have to give the computer new drawing instructions. So now we're filling a rectangle, we're drawing a new rectangle, and so we should see a nice little rectangle. And yet we don't. Why is that? Because what color is the computer using when it fills this rectangle? Black. What color is it using when it draws this rectangle? Black. If you draw 2 shapes of the same color, you're not going to see them. So what you want to do is you want to set a new color, and let's set this to white, and now we should see our nice little rectangle. Ta-da! Now, let's start making a more interesting picture. Let's set another color. I don't know, I think blue is 5. All right, blue and red. Oops, wrong set color command. Set color 5. And now I'm going to show you something about layers. So let's say I want to fill a rectangle at 200, 200, and we'll make it, again, 70 by 100. And then I'm going to fill another rectangle that's a different color. Set color, and we'll make that red. And I'll make this rectangle overlap the one I'm just about to draw. So that'll be at 230, 200, and I'll make it the same size. So I'm going to get a blue and a red rectangle. There we go. Here's my blue rectangle, and my red rectangle is drawn over top of it. So what if I wanted to draw my blue rectangle on top of my red rectangle? Well, let me explain that first. The red rectangle is drawn over the blue rectangle because the instruction for the red rectangle comes after the blue rectangle. So think about coloring a sheet of paper. If you color a blue, or if you take some construction paper, a blue rectangle, and you put it and you paste it on a sheet of paper, and you take a red piece of construction paper and you paste that on top of the blue, well, then the blue is going to be underneath the red. That's exactly what's happening here in the code. The red rectangle is being drawn underneath or over top or after the blue rectangle. So what would happen if I took these commands and put them after the red rectangle? So I'm first going to draw the red rectangle, and then I'm going to draw the blue rectangle. Well, then you should see the blue rectangle on top of the red rectangle. And that's exactly what you get. There you go. All right. This isn't a very imaginative picture, but I gather you might be a little bit more creative than me. All right, next command I want you to use is a draw line. And we want, I guess we can use the same color. Draw line, how do you use draw line? Well, it takes 4 parameters, an integer called x1, y1, x2, and y2, and it draws a line from point x1 to y1 to point x2 to y2. It's just 2 points. You should be familiar with this notation from algebra. The color of the line, blah, 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 blah. You know about the color. So let's draw from 2 points. Let's say x equals 50 and y equals 50 to x equals 400 and y equals 400. So that's going to be a diagonal. And I want you to, the reason I'm having you do this is so that you get acquainted with the coordinate system in Java. So let's see where x equals 50, y equals 50, and x equals 100 and y equals 100. Oh, it's blue. X equals 50, 50 pixels over, and y equals 50, 50 pixels down. X equals 400, 400 pixels over, and y equals 400, 400 pixels down. See that? So now you know how to draw lines. And finally, I want you to draw a string. And a string is a fancy name, and we're going to use a different color for this because I'm getting bored with blue. Let's use magenta 11. Color 11. And notice, where's my repaint method? It's all the way at the bottom, right? That's because I want to send all of these commands to the monitor all at once. So I'm going to, strings. A string is a computer word for a word. That's what it means. It's short for a string of characters. So a computer doesn't actually see words. What it sees is the character R, the character E, the character P, A, I, N, T, open parenthesis, close parenthesis, and then semicolon. That's all the computer understands. But when you put those characters and you string them together, you create a word. So that's why characters and words are called strings, because you're stringing characters together. So I want to write the words programming is super awesome! Exclamation points. And how do we use this method? So the first parameter is the string, or the word or words you want to display. And the second parameter is your x coordinate, and the third is your y coordinate. So let's display this at x equals 50 and y equals 300. And we should get a very small, we should get very small text. There we go. Programming is super awesome. Now, I think these letters should be bigger. So what I'm going to do, because programming is awesome, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make those letters bigger by setting the font. How do I set the font? Well, let's look at our parameters. Our first parameter is the style, and the second parameter is the font size. What is style? What is font size? Well, read about the parameters. The style, a number 1 through 3 that indicates the style of the text. 1 for plain text, 2 for bold, and 3 for italic. If you enter an invalid number, the style uses the default plain. So I want to make them bold. My style is going to be bold. It's number 2. And then how big do I want it to be? Font size, a number 2 through 100 that specifies the size of the font in pixels. So I want these letters to be, I don't know, let's say 26 pixels big. And notice, I have to set the font before I draw the string. If I do it afterwards, the computer is not going to know what font I want to use. So I press run, and voila. Now I've got larger text. Now that's not really centered, so in order to center it, I'd have to change the location of the text. And text is drawn the same way rectangles are drawn. So if I drew a rectangle starting at this point with this width and that height, the coordinate for the text is located right over here in the upper left-hand corner. So I'm going to move my text over a little bit, let's say to 20, and I'm going to move it down to 400 so it's a little bit more center. And there you go. Well, I could move that down a little bit. So I leave it to you at this point to create a cool, fun, interesting picture. You can use as many colors as you want, as many appropriate words and designs as you want, but create something fun and impressive. Good luck. I'm here to help you if you need it.